and for my friends and people on YouTube. Final video of the day here. I saw this at Zero Hedge. I'm like, what is this title? Trump concerned there are too many Goldman guys on his team? Who are we kidding? So I saw that and said, wait a minute, is this a joke or what? Oh, wait a minute. What did I say that there might be a possibility of? Trump is picking these people. He knows what he's doing for a specific reason. They will not control him. And if he has to fire some people, let some people go, he's going to. We've already seen that. We've already seen other guys. It's a conflict of interest. I'm going to go ahead and step down. Okay. So this is kind of odd. Zero Hedge again. Trump concerned there are too many Goldman guys on his team. 2 days after Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Baldwin sent a letter to Goldman CEO Lloyd Blankfein asking if Goldman effectively runs the country through its extensive alumni links at the Trump administration and requesting details on lobbying activities in the bank related to review of the Dodd-Frank Act and the Obama-era fiduciary rule on financial advice, as well as asking for any communication between the bank's employees and Mr. Cohn, Mnuchin, nominee for the Securities Exchange Commission, Chair Jay Clayton, and Chief Strategist Steve Bannon. Bloomberg reported overnight that yet another Goldman banker, Jim Donovan, was under consideration for the number 2 spot at the Treasury Department. However, it appears he has got one big thing working against him. Now, I got to stop for a second because so now Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Baldwin have decided, let's send a letter to CEO Lloyd Blankfein. Let me send a letter to someone that I think is robbing banks. I'm sure they are, but I don't have the proof yet. Sir, are you robbing these banks? Any of your people? Why, no, madam. We're not doing it. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, think. Like, what are you doing? You idiot. What are you doing? Freaking Elizabeth Warren, you idiot. Where was your letter to Goldman and Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, when Obama was in office, 2008? When his claim to fame of coming in the office, he's going to clean up Wall Street. Go look at his campaign promises. They're still on YouTube. He said everything right. It's why I'm not even shocked, kind of, that people voted for him. He said it all right, but he's one of those guys, like most of them, do the opposite. Then we got him in 2012 again. Another 4 years. Miss Warren, where was the letter then? Why didn't you send the letter then? The same people were running the Treasury Department. Matter of fact, Goldman Sachs was in charge, Hank Paulson, and the other guy, little Timmy Geithner, the club, when TARP funds came out. And then the QE1 came out, quantitative easing 2, QE3, etc. Where was the letter? Nope. No letter. Not now. We're just pissed off we lost, so we're going to do anything we can to make a scene. Well, that one thing working against him is the overdue realization by the new president that his cabinet openly appears to have been created and staffed by populism arch nemesis number 1, Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I think he might be right. I was going to say JP Morgan's a close second, though, okay? Besides Steven Mnuchin, Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary, former Goldman officials working for the new administration include former President Gary Cohn, now director of the National Economic Council, Stephen Bannon, the chief White House strategist, and Dina Powell, formerly the bank's head of philanthropic investment. Well, who would have thought they'd had such a department? Who's an assistant to the president and senior counselor for economic initiatives. So just like Goldman would staff every central bank's core positions prior to Trump, after the U.S. election, the world's most influential investment bank has shifted all of its attention to just one person. And he is finally starting to realize that that may not be such a good thing. Too many Goldman guys already have high-up positions in the Trump administration, the person said. And that could knock Mr. Donovan down to one of the undersecretary positions possibly Undersecretary of the Treasury for Domestic Finance. The presence of several former Goldman officials at the highest reaches of the administration runs counter to the president's regular attacks on Wall Street firms during the campaign. Donald Trump's Argument for America, a 2-minute advertisement that ran in primetime days before the election, featured Goldman Chief Executive Officer Lloyd Blankfein in a segment about corporate chieftains pocketing the wealth of American workers. I'm sure he knows, a little hands-on experience there. Having reneged on this core populist angle of his campaign and opening himself up to Democratic attacks over the extensive presence of Goldman bankers in his team, now the White House seems sensitive to the issue and is taking it into consideration as it attempts to fill remaining top posts. Really? Donovan, whose time at Goldman overlapped with Mnuchin, most recently was a managing director at the bank's private wealth management division and has been at Goldman since 1993. He would be subject to Senate confirmation, of course. At Treasury, Donovan would join the effort to execute the extensive economic policy agenda that the new administration has promised. So, going back to my last video, where I talked about the 1988 cover of The Economist magazine and this giant gold coin around the neck of the phoenix rising from ashes of burning dollars, paper dollars, and on the coin, 2018 headline cover, get ready for a world currency, 2018 stamped coin. Is there a few Goldman guys at the very top of the government specifically so that we can move forward with that plan from 30 years ago? They'll be advising him tooth and nail on how to join this one currency system. Trump has already come out, as I said in the last video. I just talked to the Chinese president, Japanese president. We understand the issues with basically fighting each other and devaluations. We want to level the playing field. We've agreed, yada, yada, yada. That to me says we all have to join the same currency block so none of us can manipulate it, can't devalue it. And then that will level the playing field, because then it's simply whose workers are willing to work the cheapest for the same valued dollar. Now, granted, I'm here to tell you, China would still win that battle, because it's no different than what we see in America a lot of times. Mexicans will come across the border, usually illegally. They'll gather up in a house, and they'll take the little side jobs, not paying very much. It's under the table work, and they all pitch in. So essentially, they can afford a decent sized house if they want to. They don't. They form they get inside of just a normal old house, nothing fancy. They split the bills. They do everything. So when you have, let's just say 3 families, women cooking, cleaning, whatever they're doing, and all the men are out working, that's a far cry from what we normally do, in America. It's my house, my one family. I'm the man, head of the household in this case. I make all the money. My wife stays home. In my case, she homeschools as well. So, it's a typical American thing where the man, goes out to work. The woman takes care of the kids, whatever. But these days, man and woman work. Point being, your family, your immediate family, one house, that's it. Which means the bills are either split by the husband and wife, or in my case, just me. I mean, split it with nobody. I just got to pay them. I can't compete, if you follow me, with a family of 3 all contributing in the single house, one electric bill, which I know would be higher than normal, but still not grossly outrageous. One internet bill, TV and internet, one bill. Water bill, again, a little higher than normal because of the family. Maybe not even a little, a bit higher than normal. The rent, mortgage, whatever it is, stays the same. 3 people contributing. They could, we'll just live together for several years, pay off this house, and then one of us owns it. And in the meantime, we'll all be saving money so we can go get our own houses too. Then they can start leaving the house. Who knows? But the people in China, because of the work conditions that are allowed over there, there's just how can the American lifestyle compete with the sweatshop lifestyle? You can't. They will undercut you every way you can. Like I said, when I was building this remote control program, I need some PHP programming on a website, some scripts. I don't do that kind of programming. I went online to the, one of these places where you can have people bid all over the world. I instantly got replies. As soon as I was hitting the enter button to finish it. Whoa. India, Pakistan, US, Canada. And it says, here's what I'm willing to, based on your description, here's what I think I can complete this task for you for. India, cheap. Pakistan, even cheap. Canada, not as cheap as those guys. America, I'm not paying that. Are you crazy? I'm not paying that. Oh, that's right. The American lifestyle, that guy needs that money. For him to maintain his lifestyle and the quality of work he does, he needs that money. India, another sweatshop type scenario many times. Way cheaper. They're getting American dollars for the work, so they're charging me American dollars, which when converted to their currency, they're making good money. How could we compete with that? The one American that applied, the one single American that applied to my little project, didn't stand a chance. As badly as I wanted to just say, you know what, just for American's sake, I want to hire you. You're so much higher, like 3 times or so higher. I don't even remember now. I can't possibly do that. It's absurd. So, I think we may be in for a little surprise in 2018, and it's called One World Currency. Get ready for it. Donovan's name emerged in January as a front-runner for Undersecretary of Domestic Finance, a key Treasury position that helps oversee the $13.8 trillion market for Treasuries. Meanwhile, underscoring the coverage Trump's Goldman ties are getting in the press, on Saturday, Gary Cohn, the former Goldman Sachs president and COO who runs economic policy inside the White House and who is now in charge of drafting Trump's phenomenal tax plan, got the star treatment when both the Wall Street Journal and New York Times published 2 very similar laudatory pieces detailing Cohn's rise. Some of the highlights from Wall Street Journal at Donald Trump's first meeting with Gary Cohn in late November, he appeared so impressed with the then president of Goldman Sachs Group, Inc., that he joked about offering him the post of Treasury Secretary, said a person who recalled the moment. Sitting nearby was the odds-on favorite of the job, Mr. Steven Mnuchin, who got the nod. On Friday, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Baldwin sent a letter to Mr. Blankfein, new CEO of Goldman now, asking whether Goldman officials have been in contact with Mr. Cohn or other Goldman alumni in the White House, and whether the firm expects to benefit from changes to financial regulation Mr. Cohn is pushing through executive orders. Now, the answer would be yeah, if we're going to have a big tax breaks, big corporate tax breaks coming back, or not even back, coming to America for the first time maybe ever. I don't know if we've ever had low tax rates for corporate tax rates. The answer is yes, and she wants them to say yes so that she can then say, oh, so again, this is an inside deal. You're using your power inside the Treasury to give yourself make it a good deal. Well, no, not necessarily. Even though the bankers certainly would do that in a heartbeat. This is a blanket tax deal for everybody in America, every company in America. So naturally, they would have to say yes. Of course, if what kind of question is that? Tax rates are outrageous now. If they come down, are we going to benefit? Of course we are. We're a corporation listed in America in numerous states. As a matter of fact, well, of course. So again, that's nonsense. The whole Democratic thing with these 2 idiots, that's nonsense. Don't even pay attention to that. A spokesman for Goldman said it had no involvement in drafting executive orders. In an interview before the executive orders were signed, Mr. Cohn said the administration's goal of deregulating financial markets has nothing to do with Goldman Sachs, but was focused on maintaining the nation's dominant position in global banking. And if you believe that, the Trump administration, Goldman Sachs, has a nice refurbished 10-year-old CDO squared in pristine shape to sell you, says Zero Hedge. I have to agree with it, Are they really concerned? Maybe. But if you have the vampire squids people working in the highest positions of the financial side of our government, Treasury, they would easily, because what do I always say? It's not the king, it's the king's advisors. It always has been, it has always been that way forever, and it will remain that way. Because the king himself doesn't know everything about everything, right? He may know a little about things, but he doesn't know everything he needs to know about everything. So I gotta have my trusty advisors. And if the trusty advisors are Goldman Sachs vampire squid people, they're going to be advising him for the ultimate agenda. One world currency. I do believe that Economist magazine cover has something to it. And again, with the recent conversation with Trump and the president of China and the prime minister of Japan, they've come to agreement. He said, we're going to be seeing something sooner than anyone thinks. And yet didn't say what this was. Excuse me, Mr. President. What is exactly it that we're going to be seeing sooner than anyone thinks? That's the question. And I think the answer just might be some kind of new currency we all get on board with so we can't fight each other, devalue there, devalue here. We all use the same currency, etc. And it's backed by precious metal, whatever. I'm speculating, but I'm trying to connect some dots, and it's hard to connect them when you are outside of the room and you can't even hear really what's going on inside the room. You can kind of hear mumbles every now and then, so to speak, and then kind of guess what was happening. But there are subtle little things. Sometimes they say something, and Trump has said a few subtle things that are making me think that this may be go time for this one world currency to start taking shape. Doesn't mean it may be in existence and being used in 2018, but we may get to a point where we actually do have currency wars and all these things, and we feel a bunch of pain. And then they come out and say, well, see, this is, we devalued, they devalued, then we devalued, then they devalued, then over there guys, yeah, this is painful, we understand. We got to have a one currency. None of these countries, we all agree to it. It's fair for everybody. And again, anyone feeling pain, financial pain, is going to say, just make the pain stop. Just make the pain stop. I'll do anything you say. One world currency, fine. Digital, good. We use our cards and swipe them, fine. Just make the pain stop. And they'll say, okay, again, create the problem, offer the solution you've always wanted. Can't offer the solution first unless there's a problem. So you got to make sure the problem comes. Then you offer the solution. Hook, line, and sinker. Take care.